Shawi, and I'm the director of the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities, CFE for short. I'm really, really delighted to welcome you all to this webinar for the launch of the Stand by Youth initiative. Today, we will there was just a little problem. Today, we will discuss how businesses of all sizes can help the young generation that have been so hard hit economically by the pandemic. And for the young, this has become a crisis, not just of health, but of opportunity. Since the onset of the pandemic, the OECD has been calling for immediate action to stop the crisis, further damaging young people's prospects. And in May, OECD countries endorsed the OECD action plans for youth, committing to step up efforts to tackle youth unemployment and better prepare young people for the world of work. And in my department, the CFE, we have been working with national and local governments to help them strengthen their efforts to support the young. Also in May, we convened, for instance, our coalition of over 60 OECD champion mayors for inclusive growth who endorsed a collective pledge for youth to target, engage, and protect young people in the post-COVID-19 recovery. We are now focusing our efforts on mobilizing companies of all sizes to support youth. Many, many businesses have already taken bold action and led by example. And you will hear many inspiring examples today. Yet, we believe much more can be done. That's why we have joined forces with a collective of global institutions representing business networks, employer association, youth organization, and higher education institution to launch this Stand by Youth initiative. We have today a packed program of speakers who will discuss the impact of the pandemic on young people, the actions taken thus far by the businesses, and how we can shape a better future for youth post-recovery, post-COVID. I would like to remind all speakers of the importance of keeping intervention short and sticking to the agenda timings to ensure all panelists have time to contribute. And I will ask our moderators to be strict. We may need to cut off intervention if necessary, and we apologize in advance. But before we begin, just a few housekeeping points. We are recording this webinar. The recording will be made available on the official Stand by Youth web page. Interpretation in English and French will be available throughout the event, and I invite you to use the translation button on Zoom at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to remind all the speakers to switch off interpretation when they speak if they are using it. And please, all participants, you can use the chat function to contact our support team for any technical difficulty. We also encourage you to use the Q&A function to share your thoughts during the event and raise questions directly to our speakers. And finally, please engage with us on Twitter using the handle hashtag story at OECD_local and the hashtag #StandByYouth. So now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over the floor to Muriel Pénicaud, who is the ambassador of France to the OECD and a great supporter of youth, for her opening remarks. Mrs. Pénicaud is a former French Minister of Labor, and she had worked for a long time in the private sector. Madame l'ambassadrice, merci pour votre soutien et votre engagement. La parole est à vous.
Merci beaucoup.
I give you the floor, Madam Ambassador. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be participating in this event, Stand by Youth, a call to action with you all. Thank you very much to Lamia Kamal Shawi, who has devoted a lot of effort to this subject. Thank you also to all of the business leaders who are with us today. I am convinced, as a former Labour Minister, as the Ambassador of France to the OECD, and as a business leader, that it is really the collective effort of businesses and governments that will enable us to avoid a sacrificed, a lost generation. We all hope that with the vaccination program, we are heading towards economic recovery and an emergence from the pandemic. However, we are facing an emergency situation for our young people. In the OECD countries and elsewhere, young people are facing difficulties in accessing the labor market, housing, in earning a decent wage. Furthermore, young people are 2.5 times more likely to be unemployed than people who are aged 25 to 64 in the current era. Their disposable income is lower than that of young people of previous generations, but they are also having more difficulty finding access to housing, and they are increasingly exposed to job insecurity. OECD data is showing that young people are facing great difficulty even in finding small standby jobs in the ready-to-wear industry, in the hotel and restaurant business. All of these sectors have been hard hit by the COVID pandemic, and opportunities have closed down, putting young people in a particularly precarious position. 1 in 10 young people today is neither in employment nor in education or in training. This represents an immense social and human cost to our society. Wearing the double cap of economists and social scientists here at the OECD, we are seeing a major loss in GDP through the lack of access of young people to the labor market at the moment. Young people who are unable to integrate into the working market, into the labor market, are also people who are unable to help our business world to assure its future needs. Some 1.5 million people in France are in this category of NEET, not in education, employment or training, having great financial difficulty through the pandemic, having difficulty housing themselves decently, having difficulty providing necessary for their necessary health care needs. They are facing greater difficulties than previous generations, not necessarily because of the health risk posed by COVID-19, which tends to affect young people less severely than older people, but because of this immense precarity, the great difficulty in finding a job and in affording housing and basic needs. This is particularly affecting young women who score 10 points less on average than young men on all of the indicators of well-being and success throughout the pandemic period. Thank you to the OECD for organizing this event. The joint mobilization of OECD and small and large enterprises is something which is very important, not just in the current circumstances, but for the future. It seems to me that this is not just an ad hoc effort that we need now. We need to forge a relationship between young people and businesses so that young people can, so that companies can contribute to training young people in these skills that those very businesses are going to need in the future. In France, in March, like many people in France, I was very worried by the situation, and I launched a platform calling on the civil society, primarily businesses, but also celebrities, artists, and other people to mobilize for and with young people. Some 160 personalities, including business leaders, including the Secretary General of the OECD, rallied to this call. And it is because we made that effort today. What I'm delighted to say is that this is becoming a key issue here at the OECD, a subject on which we work. The recent ministerial meeting of the OECD agreed on the updating of the OECD Youth Action Plan as a priority, and we'll be talking about that in upcoming ministerials. We also have a program in France, One Young Person, One Solution, that now involves 100 companies who have committed to supporting young people, helping them to understand the business world, helping them to find access to jobs and training. All of this energy, all of this dynamism, particularly from companies, is key to our success. Governments should and must set up programs, but these programs will only exist, will only succeed if companies commit to them alongside the government. So I would pay tribute to companies in France and across the OECD who, despite the current crisis, are continuing to make efforts to support young people and are stepping up those efforts, even at a time when perhaps employment options are more limited, when companies have less need for recruitment. But our young people are essential. Our young people are the future of our companies, whether large or small, the future of a country, the future of an economy. We must help our young people. We must help our young people into the future, must help them to lay the foundations of their own success. This is guaranteeing the future not only of our businesses, but also of our societies. I'm very interested to hear everything that people will have to say and contribute throughout this event. Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. We're now going to start the first session of the event, which is on the pandemic's impact on youth. We have Camille Putois, who will be running the session. She is managing the Business for Inclusive Growth B4IG initiative here at the OECD. I give you the floor.
I am delighted to have been invited to moderate this session. And so I'm Camille Putois, CEO of B4IG, a coalition of major companies fighting against inequalities and in strong and close partnership with the OECD. Just a few words about what we are doing, and then I will give the floor and introduce each of our speakers. Of course, how to help young people enter the labor market is now a critical topic for business coalitions such as B4IG. And so a few weeks ago, we decided to start to start a work stream focusing on this topic. And what was striking is that all member companies are already engaged on this topic, and they decided to act during the pandemic, and they decided to scale up. They have decided to scale up and to duplicate now that we can see, hopefully, the end of the pandemic. And so our objective, and this is something we're going to discuss a lot today, is how to scale up, how to replicate, building on best practices. And we decided to work on 3 dimensions of the matter, of the topic, of the issue. First, and this is something we are going to discuss a lot today, how to focus on vulnerable young people. Because of course, all generation has been impacted by the pandemic, but the young people from disadvantaged backgrounds do not face the same challenges. So how should we address that? This is something we are going to discuss during this panel, and I would be very, very happy to share views with that on that with the speakers. Second dimension we are working on, adaptation of skills, how to manage the transition from school to work. There are many things, many initiatives, many interesting initiatives we are going to discuss, and the mentorship, holistic package, etc. This is a key dimension, how to manage the transition from school to work. And of course, we are going to discuss training program focusing on young people. And so the coalition has decided to work on the 3 dimensions, 3 critical dimensions to help young people. And I would be happy to share views on this with the rest of the coalition, the rest of the, sorry, of the panel. So I am, as we are going to explore the impact of the pandemic on young people in this panel, I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Joseph Elborn, Secretary General of the European Youth Forum. I will ask you to raise your hand when I introduce you, so that the attendees can recognize you. Thank you, Joe. Carlos Sentis, CEO of the World Innovation Alliance. Thank you. Herman Nimes, CEO of Randstad Group, Belgium and Luxembourg. Paul Hannigan, board member of European Association of Institutions in Higher Education and president of Letterkenny Institute of Technology. Thank you. And Jesus Gomez, market development and product portfolio director at Daimler. Thank you. Thank you so much. First, let me turn to Joe. Joe, many organizations have pointed out that while the pandemic has been challenging for all, compared to many other social groups, young people have been disproportionately impacted. Your organization recently published a report on the social, economic, and mental health impact of COVID-19 crisis on young people in Europe. Could you share with us the main key findings from this report? Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Camille.
You have 4 minutes.
I'll put on a timer. Needless to say, it's not looking great for young people during the pandemic and post-pandemic. I'm not going to get massively into the statistics and the numbers in the reports. I'll share a link in the chat where you can go through that yourselves. I mean, we surveyed over 12,000 young people. So the numbers sort of speak for themselves. But what I want to do is I want to focus down on a quote from the study. And this is from one of the young participants who was one of those 12,000 people who were giving us data inputs. And they said this: maybe I shouldn't focus on my dream job anymore. I have to focus on a job that will give me money to live. And obviously that's not a very pleasant sentiment in general, but what really captures it for me, or the essence of it, is that hope is fading. The hope of young people is fading. You may have had the economic crisis in the 2008. That hit young people pretty hard. And we invested trust in the political class. And again, with COVID, we've done the same thing. And if we look at a lot of the promises, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of people saying where the young people are the most disproportionately affected, they need extra help. I mean, there's 30% young unemployment in Spain. And then we look at the results on the ground, we look at the facts, and we see less than 1% of the recovery and resilience funds being driven towards young people, despite all this. So there's a mismatch between the rhetoric and the reality, and that is causing hope to fade. And I think that's what really comes through in this study, that hope is obviously a key construct of well-being. And the thing which time and time again, as we surveyed these tens of thousands of young people, was well-being is decreasing, hope is decreasing. And that's why initiatives like this are so important. I have the pleasure of sort of speaking on behalf of the youth of Europe. We have over 6,000 grassroots organizations within the European Youth Forum. And they all can see something's coming. And we need to collectively do something about it. So Stand by Youth is going to be fantastic for that. And my big ask to everyone today is to double the difference. And that means doubling the number of graduates you intake, doubling the number of apprenticeships, doubling how many opportunities you offer young people this year. Because obviously there's a self-interest for me to say that. But the thing which our report clearly shows is that the foundations of the first few years in work are so critical, right? It's like the foundations of the house that you're building. And if we're going to build amazing new managers, if we're going to build amazing new directors, if we're going to build amazing new CEOs, what happens in that first few years is so critical. And we have had a generation that's been stuck at home for a year and a half. They haven't built the normal skill sets. I bet every single person around this phone call has an interesting memory from their first few years of work, which has stayed with them and informed them and made them become the leaders that they are today. And we need to maximize what we can do in that space. So I'm calling everyone, there's some amazing people here present today. Pick up the phone to your HR team, or if you're the HR team, look in the mirror and hire more, do more, double the difference, increase your intake. And then we will start to be able to really fix some of the big issues which were flagged in our report. I could talk a lot more, but I see I am up on my 4 minutes. I'll share the link in the chat, and also really happy to obviously have a chat and take questions afterwards. But thank you.
Thank you so much. It's clear, double the difference. So let's continue the conversation now. And let me turn now to Carlos from JEUNE, the World Innovation Alliance, which has an amazing global impact community of individuals from more than 130 different countries, and willing to contribute to finding and applying solutions for global challenges. So, Carlos, as an entrepreneur yourself, what are the key impacts of the COVID-19 crisis you have seen for young business owners? You two have 4 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It is a great honor to be a part of this initiative. Thank you to OECD. Thank you to all the organizations involved. And thank you as well to Alberto Carvalho, the president of the Organization of Young Entrepreneurs of the European Union, because today I'm not only representing the World Innovation Alliance, but also JEUNE. The biggest impact has definitely been in revenue. You lose clients, you lose contracts, and when you make less money, it's just so much more difficult to handle operations. The operating costs remain pretty much the same. You have administration, you have to deal with real estate, with loans, with so many costs. And more importantly, you have to make a decision that is a no-win situation, because you want to keep every single employee, because they are your family and because they are the future of your organization. The problem is that some of the businesses we have seen that have had to close or that had to sustain losses for more than 1 year. So the problem is, how do you take care of your employees in that situation? And all solutions are bad, because one is you keep losing money. The other is that you reduce working hours, which leads to having less resources to actually create solutions for the future, and you pay less than what you want and they get less than what they need. And the other solution, of course, is a no solution as well, which is letting people go, which of course leads as well to the situation where you cannot really move forward. There's so clear effects on the youth. And I think one that we see in young business owners is the fact that we have less capacity of dealing with losses, right, than big corporations. And not only we receive less incentives and less support sometimes, but also it's the problem that it is very difficult for us to spend 1, 2, 3, 4 years where we are not probably going to generate the same level of revenue. Now, what we see as well is that this is not only a health crisis and an economic crisis that comes from this. We have a structural problem of unemployment. We had it before the pandemic. The pandemic has affected very negatively. I was listening yesterday to the Secretary General of the OECD in the Outlook of Work 2021. The situation is not good, but the problem is that we are not taking into account something that also the World Economic Forum is predicting, which is probably 50% of jobs are going to change in the coming years. This means that we have right now a huge mismatch between the skills that the market demands right now, the market will demand in the future, and the ones that our workforce has and that we are training our young generations. And the big problem that we have is that we're not putting the solutions in place. And I think one of the biggest focus that we should have is education for growth. Education is not necessarily only the formal, traditional, long-term study to get a degree, because people think that the only thing that companies want is just degrees. But the reality is that what companies need is attitude, is willingness to do something, to provide value to the organization, and also skills, not only degrees. Now, there are incredible resources available online. Most of the cases, they're for free sometimes. So the question here is, why aren't we utilizing better the resources to train on skills for growth that are the ones that can help us find or create jobs? I'm talking about entrepreneurship, innovation, sales, public speaking, public relations, digital skills, coding. Those things are important for all of us, and we're not training on them. Schools, universities, and even besides that. So education is critical, but the problem is that education skills without connections are nothing. So businesses and organizations need to do everything they can to provide the opportunities of connection, because if you don't have connection with other individuals or other organizations, you don't have employers, you don't have investors, you don't have clients, you don't have partners. So you need connections. And that's why we're from JEUNE and from the World Innovation Alliance pushing connections for growth in different ways: job fairs, matching of businesses, both big and small, but also trying to connect entrepreneurs with investors and trying to connect students as well with opportunities in the future. The last thing I will share is that we are advocating for the Global Digital Erasmus, which is this idea where school and university students can connect directly with people all over the world every week, every month, so they get those connections that could lead them to opportunities to create a future for them. Lastly, the most important moment to help, as my co-panelist was saying, Joe, it is vital to help in the beginning of their career, in the beginning of the entrepreneurship journey. Because if you don't have experience, if you don't have case studies, if you don't have portfolio, if you don't have a large resume, it's very difficult to have the trust that you need from the organizations. So let us give opportunities, double down. Let's try to help in the beginning, even if it's project-based, even if it's only some tasks. Let's build together case studies. Let's help people start, because if they start, they feel confident that it is possible to go forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carlos. Very, very insightful. Let's move on now to Herman Nijns, CEO of Randstad Group in Belgium and Luxembourg. So you are the largest human resources service provider in Belgium, in both countries, and you are the market leader in temporary employment and replacement. What changes or impacts have you noticed in terms of employment opportunities for young people since the start of the pandemic?
Well, actually, the initial impact of the pandemic was huge. Our global numbers at the global level of employees working dropped in April 2020 with more than 35%. So as we employ many young people, that affected a lot of them. We have to be honest. But that's, at this moment, though, there are some positive signs. So I also want to provide some hope for all of the people of, the ones which were inquired by Joe also. I want to provide some hope, because as we speak, employment expectations are at their highest. Since 2018, also within the manufacturing sector. So also the more vulnerable people can get jobs. The hiring rate is at the highest since 2 decades, so 20 years. If we look at most of our staffing markets, they are still below pre-pandemic levels, but they grow at unprecedented rates. So in general, yes, the outlook is bright, especially as vaccination is progressing. Nevertheless, in Europe, we do see large differences. As Joe already mentioned, Spain, for instance, has indeed a youth unemployment of more than 30%. And whilst Germany, it was at 6.2%. So there is a lot of difference in the European level, at least to say. So back to your question, the pandemic has indeed accelerated 3 important trends, and they were already touched upon by the previous speaker, so I'll try to be brief. First trend is digitization. Combined with remote working, that clearly accelerated. I mean, if we look at all of the surveys, McKinsey, etc., the digital change is coming. And I want to give a message of hope also there. I think young people could have an advantage here, because often they are more agile to adapt to these digital changes and maintain their employability. We need to help them. And with Randstad, we offered numerous digital trainings for our temp staff to support them in this digital transition. That's the first one. Second trend is there is indeed a structural mismatch on talent. Sorry, that's something, okay. Someone who hasn't muted, sorry. So there.
You're on mute, Herman. Just.
Unmute, here we go.
Yeah, good.
I think someone muted me, so sorry for that one. Just to come back on the second trend, there is an increased structural mismatch and talent scarcity. So also for youngsters who have less relevant experience, this really is an opportunity, because companies and also employers are going to realize that they don't have the luxury to be choosy or picky. So we connect with about thousands of companies each day and try to convince them to bridge the gap towards a more inclusive labor market, or as Joe said, double the difference, because we need to help them in realizing that one. So the third trend is, and that was what also Carlos was talking about, this upskilling and reskilling. It's really important. Also, we as a sector and as Randstad, we have played a pivotal role in this domain because we have a unique view on the future needs of the labor market across sectors, and we therefore invested several millions in training. As a final conclusion, from surveys around the world after the previous economic crisis, we've learned that young people lack a professional network at the beginning of their career, whatever profile, and that they need a stepping stone to get across access to the labor market. So just some numbers to prove that there is possibility. Last year, even during a pandemic, we employed 600,000 staffing employees who were under the age of 25, and we still placed 15,000 of these young people in permanent jobs. So I think we can play a role with Randstad, with the business of staffing industry. So I really think that if we all should take our responsibility, that we can make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very clear, very, very insightful too. Let me turn now to Jesus. Jesus, your company have been working with some of the most disadvantaged groups in Mexico. What has this meant for those groups? What was the impact?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Just to give a little bit of background, the Líderes en Movimiento, or Leaders in Movement, is trying to connect these youth that at this disadvantage with existing leaders of the organization. In their professional training, they relate to high-level professionals so they can have some, the ability to interact with them, to partner with them, and establish what we know and have as mentoring sessions. Thus, this relationship starts developing precisely for them. They get to know reality, the ability to come out of the pandemic world and into the reality. The role model that the mentor plays explains what it means and how to look for a job in a large company. How to prepare a resume, look at the different possibilities that they have with regards of studying and continued education. At large, sometimes it's just having the chance to have a role model they can, they can be assisted with as an example to grow and understand the opportunities that exist. Within Mexico, 25% of university students continue to be employed in the informal economy, 50% of youth in a job that does not require higher education. And the average salary of university graduate is 6,000 pesos compared to 15,000 pesos from a street vendor. This is based on studies carried out, and it's critical. These coupled with the fact that in 2018, 24% of the young people graduated from public universities get a job through a recommendation, 26% of them through internships, and the rest of them due to conditions and everything else just get a really hard time getting a job. So Leaders in Movement, additionally to that, provides them with benefits that obtain, and these are, they learn about the factors that contribute to success in the work life. They develop communication skills. They acquire knowledge that facilitates that transition from student life to work life. They also develop a perspective of the professional field within a company. They get better recognized for their own abilities and skills, as well as the areas of opportunity. They increase their motivation to successfully compete in their studies and develop important skills for the future. One of the most critical items is to be able to connect that they have as a potential from what they learn in the university to the real world and the applicability of it. And most importantly, self-esteem. This is one of the things that holds people back in reality today a lot. The ability to see their potential is that self-esteem that is developed throughout this program. We had a total of 22 mentees so far. 22 mentors are training, and developing this relationship. The partnership results obviously it has impact people in the industrial, physics, economic, and engineering careers for the most part. We have had different senior people in the company also come out and help out with the impact. The generation at all levels of the organization take the opportunity to get involved in a social responsibility project that is skill-based, and encourage the implementation of a culture of development of employees and youth. So this program has not only the impact on the youth that are being aided, but also on the rest of the organization, as we admit that we are part of the solution. At Daimler Trucks in Mexico, we take an active role, and the mentor becomes a guide and source of inspiration to the youth, and at the same time it becomes an advocate as well for us to get involved and continue to grow these programs. We've got a lot of good comments from the mentors, in which they gain a lot of insight of the reality, go back to how it was when they graduated as a student, and they get a lot of gratification from taking an active role in that teaching experience, and see how young people are interested in their future, and hear how they can apply what they've learned, and know that they can succeed in life. From the mentee side of things, we've got comments that lead them to understand how to come out of the social, let's say, shell that they have developed within the pandemic, and take part now on an active role of the economy that is waking up. And the mentor works a lot with regards of the connecting of that with their professional lives to continue to help the community in that regard. So that's what Daimler is doing with Inroads Mexico. I will take a link and post a video so you can watch at your leisure with regards of this program in Mexico.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jesus. Let me now turn on to Paul. Paul, this crisis clearly affects prospects for young graduates. How have higher education institutions been dealing with that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, and welcome or greetings from Ireland. I'm here representing Eurasia this afternoon. I suppose it's a real opportunity to speak after the other speakers in the context of the impact on students and graduates of the COVID over the last year and a half. Really, I suppose what it has is taken a year and a half out of their lives in college, a very short life, normally 2, 3 or 4 years. To take a year and a half out of that is a real restriction in terms of the development of the individuals as people. And that's what Herman and Jesu have been making reference to. So it's really important that we look at that and see how we can retrofit that. What happened really was that students moved from their natural peer group, their natural social circle, back into their own homes or into their student accommodation, to their bedrooms, and restricted to that activity in terms of engagement with lectures or whatever on a screen. And they could choose to turn it off or turn off their camera or whatever it was. So the social interaction completely disappeared. Everything else disappeared with that as well. They had no work, no sporting activities, no entertainment, no other socializing, and they're trying to complete their academic studies at the same time. So from our perspective, just looking at it personally, what we tried to do was we tried to create a psychological contract with them to say, look, there are no options available to you at the moment. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Everybody's in the same position. There's nothing available to you, only to complete your qualification, only to complete the work that you're doing and move from one stage to another. And hopefully at the end of that, there will be opportunities arising, as I've just been outlined, to avail of new opportunities as they become available. And how did they get on in that space? Well, really, they've done remarkably well. I think Herman made a reference to them being digital natives. So in the context of dealing with the technology, that really wasn't a major issue. But when you do surveys with the students at that stage, what comes out of it really is that it's the isolation issues that were more important than anything else. That they were on their own, that in a lot of cases they didn't move to student accommodation, but some of them did and benefited from that. But the isolation caused them, the difficulties of engaging, the difficulties of concentration, the difficulties of keeping up to date, and also the difficulties of never having met their classmates. For first-year students coming in last September, they've never met the people they're meant to be in college with. And that is a major restriction. So if you're talking about the development of the soft skills that are really important in the workplace today, they have had no opportunity at all to develop those in any way. So there's a major gap in terms of where they're coming from currently, in terms of their hard skills, in terms of the program they've completed, but the soft skills they require for the social interaction that's really going to be necessary, as Joe has outlined earlier, in terms of how they progress into the workplace and how they make that jump. So in terms of institutions, what have we tried to do to support them? As well as putting our academic services online in terms of classes, etc., we've also had to put our student services online, our health services, our counselling services, our employment services, to try and integrate them and encourage them to meet with each other and engage with each other and to look forward to the future. Actually, what has happened is that the students have adapted really well in the context of completing their academic programs. Their performance has been very good, comparable with every other year, maybe even better in some cases. They've worked hard because they can see that there were very little distractions to keep them from that, and they're working towards the goal that's out the other end of it. But at the same time, having met a number of them recently, they say, thanks, Paul, really good, delighted the way things have worked out in terms of the program, but we want to be back on campus. We want to meet people. We want to get engaged back in clubs and societies, etc. And that is the secret sauce of higher education that makes the graduates the rounded people they are when they go out into the workplace. So from our perspective, we've tried really hard to work with a very difficult situation. It's been imposed on us from somewhere, not our issue, not our problem, but we've had to deal with it. The students have been outstanding in terms of their engagement, but they need the support coming out of this and really how to work to achieve the objectives that Herman and Jesu and Carlos has outlined previously, and to deal with the issues that Joe identified at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's move on now to the dialogue session. That will be very short because we are running out of time. Is there a question, any question from the audience for one of our panelists? I don't... Q&A. So there is a question for Jesus. I don't know, can you read it or no, or just
yeah,
me?
absolutely, I can.
Okay. So just
so
could you
says,
could you in a nutshell summarize the question and answer, please?
No problem. So the question is with regards of mentoring as part of the the support, the transitioning of going from school to employment. And it says noted that the OECD Youth Action Plan does not specifically reference mentoring, and says what work studies or partners doing relating to mentoring as part of the post-pandemic recovery plan. And I think in reality the solution is not just what is specifically written or whatnot. We all realize that mentoring is probably one of the most I want to say one of the most enabling aspects of connecting to the real world, because you talk to somebody else that has been part of it already. How do you learn to sew, to cook, to everything else? Is regularly talking to somebody that has done something. How do you learn how to go on a bicycle? Your dad, your mom maybe hold you a little bit. That aspect of mentoring is actually developing the first connections and synapses that will help you to say, well, it's not so bad. I can do it. There's an engineer or he or she graduated from this program. I can probably do something different, similar in that regards. So I truly believe mentoring as the most relatable example, person to person, that can activate that social synapses for the persons that are coming out of school without that, without the basic elements from what Paul was relating to. Is this set of soft skills, is the set of items that you don't, let's say, deep dive in college as a specific class, but the person that you might relate to as your mentor has already experienced throughout the work. So absolutely important. Thank you, Stacy, for asking that questions. Not sure what the OECD will do with regards of that specific paragraph, but OECD, but it's truly important. I definitely see it.
Thank you so much.
If I may
Carlos,
say,
yeah.
If I may say something, Camille.
Very shortly, please.
I think if you look at mentoring, that you will reach a certain public, and that certain public will be the, let's say, the more educated people. So in that way, I agree with you, Jesus. But on the other hand, I also think that having a first job and having that stepping stone towards all of those contacts, cooperating with colleagues, having those soft skills developed, I think that's also an important, I would say, even complementary to mentoring, an important stepping stone towards that labor market, for at least for the more vulnerable people. That I would like to add that one.
Thank you so much. There are so many questions, but there is one for Carlos. What are the prospects for young entrepreneurs in the current environment?
Well, I think there's a huge number of opportunities, and the fact that it is difficult to see opportunities when you're surrounded by negativity and bad news does not reflect the fact that there are a lot of opportunities right now. And if you look at what you can do thanks to new technologies, there's just so many new spaces, and the convergence of these new technologies is creating opportunities that we don't even recognize. We're going towards singularity, which means basically that we don't know where we're going. And every single new step that we take creates new options. Now, the problem is that we are so used to traditional careers where we just expect that our specialization is going to work for the rest of our careers, that it is scary. But when you are an entrepreneur, the first thing you have to do is to be resourceful. You need to understand that there's going to be changes, that change is the only constant. And if you're willing to learn new things, talk to more people, and try to provide value in new environments, there's definitely going to be spaces where you can do projects. The reality is, in GEM, in WIA, and with the businesses that we work with, we just see dozens and dozens of new models, new business models that are also impactful, that focus on social entrepreneurship, basically. So it's for-profit social impact. We see opportunities everywhere, and in the connection between every single sector with every other. For example, health tech and ed tech and many others, right? So there's opportunities, but we need to be willing to learn and to adapt. And instead of thinking so much about how uncomfortable it is that the world is changing, let's just assume that that is the fact, and that we have so much that we can do about it. We have to be creative, and we have to be supportive to each other. And if we think about how to provide value to the market, there's so many things that you can do. I can share examples, but I don't think I have time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carlos. And I would like, yes, we are, this is the end of this panel. So I would like to thank all the speakers, and of course to thank the attendees for joining this panel. I don't have time to share the key findings from this session, but I would just mention one thing that Joe said at the very beginning of this session, that is double the difference. And I think this is a responsibility of corporations to scale up and to replicate best practices, experiences that have been working well. And so we now have the roadmap. So Lamia, over to you, and thank you for organizing this very, very interesting and insightful panel.
Thank you so much, Camille. Very, very lively, very interesting discussion that we had in a short moment, you know, so you did it very well. The panelists were fantastic. I would like now to turn straight away to our second session, and I would like to invite Hani Hosenberg. She's the Executive Director of Business at OECD. We call it BIAC. She's going to moderate this second session. Hani, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lamia. And let me just say, it's a great pleasure for me to be here on behalf of Business at OECD, also known as BIAC, as you said. We are the officially recognized business voice to the OECD. We have a global membership representing over 7 million companies of all sizes from OECD countries and beyond. And let me really start by saying that we are extremely pleased to be part of the Stand by Youth initiative. We are pleased, we are honored, we fully support this, and we are pleased to do this with other prominent business organizations that share our vision that we must give the youth a chance. Now, before turning to our panelists, I would like to briefly mention that we at Business at OECD have identified this initiative and this issue as a priority early on. Actually, earlier this year, we launched our own Business for Youth campaign to share concrete initiatives that our members have taken, our members, both national industry and employers organizations and their member companies, to help young people enter the labor market. Now, these initiatives, you will find them available in a special section on our public website. And it's a living website, so it will be added, we will add initiatives as they come in. Now, what our initiative has really underlined is that many companies and also business organizations have already taken bold action during these difficult times. So I agree with previous speakers, there's also hope. It's difficult, but there's also hope. We have seen targeted programs for youth. We've seen engaging in partnerships with other key players. And these initiatives really are also a sign for hope. So let me also underline, however, that of course, not all companies have the same capacities, but I'd like to say that even small steps count. And we strongly believe that sharing best practice, and it can be an inspiration for others to see what can be done, and others will hopefully follow. I'm therefore very pleased that I can moderate this session here today, where we will explore what businesses have already been doing to support youth during this crisis. Let me just say we have a terrific panel of business representatives with us. So I would like to briefly introduce our panelists first. We have Laurent Freitz, Chairman of GAN, Global Apprenticeship Network, and Chairman of Global Alliance for Youth and CEO Zone Americas, Nestlé. Laurent, je suis heureuse de vous revoir. We have Marit Wetterhuis, CEO and founder of Capasa ES. Hello. We have Joël Mongon, Executive Director, PTech, Corporate Social Responsibility of IBM. Hi, Joël. We have Gilles Vermeaux-Desroches, Senior Vice President, Corporate Citizenship and Institutional Affairs from Schneider Electric.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Gilles. We have Javier Ogla, Executive Vice President and Santander University's Global Head, University CEO from Santander Group. Hello. And we have Sophie Furtak, Inclusion and Diversity Program Manager at Access. Welcome to you all. Now, I would like to start this panel discussion with Nestlé first, to see what Nestlé is doing with the Alliance for Youth. Now, Nestlé, I understand you founded this business-driven movement back in 2014, so it's a couple of years back already, as part of the corporate response to the last pandemic to help create job opportunities for young people. Now, since then, you have been partnering with governments, foundations, youth organizations, academia, and the private sector to achieve, I think, truly outstanding results. So, Laurent, could you tell us a bit more about what has motivated you to launch this initiative? And you have 4 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Annie. I will try to do my best. Pleasure to join on such a critical topic. So indeed, we launched our Global Youth Initiative back in 2013 and then set up quickly an Alliance for Youth, Global Alliance for Youth. And what was the vision at the time? 2013 is an important date because this is the peak reached by unemployment and especially youth unemployment in Europe as a consequence of the previous crisis. 1 in young 4 European was unemployed at that time, and in a country like Spain or Greece, almost 60% of the youth was without jobs. So we were in the face of that crisis, with in the context of aging Europe, indebted Europe, and the prospect of having a lost generation which could not integrate, which could not contribute to social and economic development. So we thought. And we saw governments starting to mobilize, EU mobilizing with the European Pledge for Apprenticeship, but we saw that the business could do something about it, and not only could do, but should do something about it. And for a simple reason that jobs are primarily created in the private sector, especially in the context of indebted public sector. There is not much space for recruiting civil servants at the time and even as we speak. So the jobs are in the private sector. And when it comes to providing what is essential to any youth, which is the practical experience, because at the end of the day, we had also this concrete vision, and this is why we are engaged in the Global Apprenticeship Network, that the best form of education is the one that combines the theory with the practice. The theory without the practice is worth something, but not that much, and especially in the eyes of an employer. So the best form of education is always combining theory and practice. Who can provide the practice? The companies, the business. And taking an apprentice or taking a trainee or taking an intern, it's not such a big commitment from any business, small or big, but it's a big contribution to the youth And it's a big contribution to the community as well, because the youth employed or with a practical experience is a youth that can develop his life, can contribute to the community, and can make the community thrive. So we had this conviction that we can do something about it. We were investing, we were expanding, and we could anyway provide traineeship, apprenticeships, and we could do also something important. I heard talk about mentoring. We have plenty of HR specialists, we have plenty of business specialists, and our assessment, and I think it's still valid, was that many youngsters, they don't know how to connect with the private sector. They don't know how to contact companies. They don't know how to write a CV. They don't know how to pass an interview. And we thought we can help them. We have plenty of people that are eager to help and support the community, who could mentor, who could run workshops on readiness for work, how to write a CV, how to pass an interview, and so on and so forth. So we engaged the organization around those principles. Number one, provide direct employment to youth as much as we could. And we had the baby boomers retiring, so we knew that we could provide opportunities. Provide more apprenticeships and more traineeships to youngsters, and mobilize our people to run readiness for work programs. So we took a commitment of 20,000 young people impacted in the following 3 years across Europe, every country in Europe, every kind of jobs. And but quickly, and this is how the alliance came up, the thought, and my thought was, we can have an impact, but it's relatively small in the face of the magnitude of the millions of young people unemployed, without any opportunity, without any future. So I thought, if we mobilize our supply chain, if we mobilize our business partners, we can demultiply the impact, and we can possibly create a snowball effect. So I wrote personally to the 60,000 suppliers we had at the time in Europe, with this message that if each and every one of them just take one more trainee or one more apprentice, so it's not 20,000, it's 80,000 that we would impact. And we managed to convince a number of them, a couple hundred actually, and it's not 80,000, it's 100,000 that we managed to provide relatively quickly. Then we expanded the initiative to the Americas. Problem of informality highlighted by Jesus is absolutely valid. And Latin America is in trouble big time since the end of the commodity cycle. This is largely the forgotten continent. And informality is the prevailing form of jobs. So there as well, we could contribute, we could help, we could support. And then we realized that the problem was global, so we went global with the initiative, took a commitment to 2030. This is for the long term, and our commitment is to provide 10 million economic opportunities to young people by 2030, and we are on that path to provide 1 million a year across the organization. And we got now more members of this Global Alliance for Youth, like-minded companies like Microsoft, Facebook, EY, NG, Publicis, featured today, Accenture, you name it, as part of it. And of course, collectively, we can have a greater impact working on skills, the re-skilling agenda, and working on promoting and pushing apprenticeship schemes. So absolutely convinced that this is of the essence. I think the pandemic has made the problem even more acute. Why? Because many youngsters had to stop their studies, especially the ones that were working to study. They lost the working opportunity, and they cannot pursue the studies. Many lost their jobs. Many cannot connect with companies in times of lockdown and restrictions. So what did we do? Well, we did what everyone, I think, did and can do, is to move everything virtual. So we had virtual recruitment, virtual onboarding, virtual traineeships or apprenticeships, and just kept pushing and just kept driving the initiative in a context where hundreds of millions of youngsters have lost jobs, where in Latin America, again, a number, 70% of the offer in traineeship, apprenticeships has disappeared. So the problem is there. The economic and social crisis is there, largely mitigated in developed countries by the support packages. But this is not a reality, unfortunately, in emerging countries like in Latin America or in Africa. So the need is there, and the must do something is there. And of course, we are happy to stand by this initiative. We feel proud. We feel that it's a must. Everyone can do something. Every company, big or small, can provide one more opportunity to youngsters and make a difference and impact this youngster, but also impact its family, its community. And at the end of the day, you look at the big systemic problems of the day, be it climate change, be it employment, be it the technological change, be it diversity and inclusion. You will see that, and I don't need to preach converted, of course, but society should see that the youth are at the core of it. So just to say that we are absolutely in it and happy to partner with anyone who is like-minded and wants to make an impact. Over to you.
Thank you very much. This was very impressive, especially writing to 60,000 suppliers. Thank you very much for this. I'd now like to turn to our next speaker, Marit from Capassa, a small business, and we are very, very pleased to have you here. Capassa is a fintech company from Norway. And Marit, I understand that Capassa has been playing an important role in creating opportunities for young people through internships. So could you tell us a little bit more about this experience, about giving young people excellent development experiences, while at the same time finding that interns are an important asset for the business? And could I just ask you and all the following panelists to really stick to the 4 minutes so that we have a little bit of time for discussion? Thank you. We can't hear you. You're on mute. Marit? So we can't hear you, Marit. Maybe, can you try again? You know, what I would suggest, maybe what we can do, we can move to the next speaker, Joël, and then we get back to Marit afterwards. That's okay. So let's maybe turn to Joël first. So Joël from IBM. IBM has been very active in supporting young people, in particular by promoting education and training opportunities through your PTech. Can you tell us a little bit more about this initiative?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Marit, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I'm sure technology issues are going to be fixed very soon. So we have a perspective at IBM that I will bring here, and the perspective is that we have a front row seat in changing technology. We're creating these AI technologies, we're creating blockchain technologies and cloud. And we have another part of this is that we're working with our clients to use these technologies to transform their industries. So we get to see on both sides how these rapid technology changes and the application of these technologies are going to impact our society and also impact industries. So about 10 years ago, we started to really think about this problem, and we spent some time thinking about the human resource angle and the societal angle of it very, very specifically. And that's what ended up with us creating PTech. A singular point of view that we had was that the way that these technologies were changing very rapidly, we saw that they could end up really leading to an economic growth that was not inclusive. That things were going so fast that we had young people within our communities that could literally not get the credentials or the skills to be able to take part in the economy and to be able to enjoy the benefits that this economy was bringing. So that was the first thing. So that was exacerbating inequality as we saw it in our societies. And we thought that it was important to fix that. And we took a non-traditional approach to fixing this. We actually went back to look at the education system and to look at where we could plug the gaps within the education system or what innovations we could come up with. PTech was born out of the fact that we have these 3 major pillars in human and workforce development, which is the secondary education system, the post-secondary education system, which is the degree granting or the university education system, and then industry. And then in many, many countries, these 3 pillars were completely siloed. So PTech sought to come together and say, how could we actually integrate these 3 pillars of workforce development a little bit more closely together with 3 aims. The first is, how do we do that so that when there are changes in technologies and when there are changes in our society and there are changes in industry, that we could adapt a little bit quicker so that industry would be in the table, post-secondary would be on the table, and we could just adapt a little bit quicker and get a nicer feedback loop. How could we remove access to underrepresented minorities or students that were coming from low-income communities that had barriers to accessing high-quality education and internships and mentoring, all of those things that we know are really important, especially for the new economy that we're going into. And also the principle of how do we plant this within the public education system. It's very easy as a business to create these little niches of business programs that end up not benefiting a large group of people and end up not actually contributing to innovation within public education because they exist outside the public education system. So one of the real pillars that we had was like, how do we make sure that we create something that was integrated within the public education system? So PTEC started in 2011. A short description of PTEC is that it's an education model that integrates secondary education, post-secondary education, and industry experience as a one experience for a young person. So a young person gets in and they actually graduate with a post-secondary education qualification that is aligned to industry needs. They get an internship, mentoring, and workplace learning, all as part of their curriculum before they graduate. So it's really taking all of these aspects of linking to growing jobs in the economy, linking to the right skills that are required for the new economy, and putting it within an integrated package within the education system, where industry, post-secondary, and secondary all work together in this model. This model has been going for 10 years. It is now in 260 schools in 28 countries. So 28 countries have adopted PTEC into their public education model. We have 150,000 students that are part of the PTEC pipeline, and 600 companies are taking part in this. Now, I give this background because it informs a little bit how we reacted to COVID. We had this closeness to tens of thousands of students. So our reaction to COVID was a little bit different because we were hearing very directly to students, and we had that very direct feedback loop with them. The first thing that we noticed was the switch to virtual was easy for some and not easy for others. And there was a specific group that we felt were just left out of the conversation, which is the students that really needed one-on-one support, special needs students, students with disabilities. When everything switched online, they were expected to sit in front of the computer and just figure it out. So one of the things that we did is that we bought one-on-one tutoring hours specifically for special needs students. We don't hear them talked about a lot, but the school environment really provides a lot, and virtual doesn't. And this is where some of the students who need lunches at school just to survive, that's where they eat their meals. Special needs students, they get a lot of support during schools that we could not really provide outside. So that was the first thing, to really pay attention to the students. The second thing, which Laurent mentioned a lot, was that there's a lot of small companies and medium-sized companies that went out of business during the pandemic. And so all of the opportunities that students had to have internships and workplace learning with these companies, they all went away in 2020. So what we did at IBM, and also with a lot of other PTEC partners, is that we have raised our high school internships from 200 last year to 1,200 this year. So we're taking away the slack, not the slack, but wherever students fell out because of smaller companies that could not make this commitment, we took all of those students as a big company to be able to provide them with this experience so that they can still graduate with internships. And then the final thing that we did was that we looked at how schools were prioritizing what they were going to turn online. It was a very, very big challenge for schools about what to take online. They prioritize obviously the key academic stuff like math and English or French or German, depending on where you are. But there were aspects about professional skills, the soft skills that were part of the curriculum for all of this workplace learning and the internships. Those were not prioritized. And it was okay. The schools could really not do that. So we stepped in and we built this platform, which we call IBM Skills Built for Students, to provide all of this workplace learning curriculum and teacher enablement so that students could actually get access to this. So there are now 450,000 students on this platform around the world. So I want to conclude by saying that I really want to invite everybody to look at how we could much more integrate and with the public education system. I think it's okay for us to do things outside the public education system, but we miss a lot when we do that. And so programs like PTEC are a way to actually keep us inside the system and keep looking at what is happening inside the system and see how we prepare students for the AI-driven economy and the AI-driven society.
Great. Joël, thank you very much. It was really good to see how you've been reaching out also to disadvantaged groups to promote access, and really impressive program. Can we try Marit again?
Do you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Please
Sorry about that.
4 minutes. We are a little bit over time. If all panelists could please stay within the 4 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, well then, first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for letting me speak at this very important OECD event. It's a very, very big honor. I'm a CEO and founder of a fintech startup, which is basically a digital CFO for small to medium-sized businesses. So we are here today to talk about how we can help the future generation. And I want to start with a story from last summer. A former colleague of mine called me up. His daughter, a bright young student, had signed an agreement for a summer internship with a large IT company. When this IT company had canceled the internship 2 weeks before she was supposed to start, everything was shut down, basically due to COVID. My former colleague asked if we had anything in Capasa that she could possibly do to help out. She really needed the work experience. Well, we wanted to help, and since we, being a startup and fully digital, even before COVID, we gave her an internship for the summer. She got to work with great technology, and we got help to develop cool new features for our application. It was a win-win situation. And I'm very proud to say that this summer, she managed to land a fantastic internship with one of the leading tech consultancies in Norway. So given this great experience last summer, we decided to advertise for an intern this summer. We contacted the leading universities and the business schools, and we were overwhelmed with the response that we got. We ended up not with one, but with 4 interns. So we did not double the number, we could quadruple the number. And since we actually do pay our interns in Capasa, 4 for us is a big investment. But more important than the financial investment is the time that we invest in our interns. Time is the most valuable thing you have when running a startup or a small business. We spend time coaching, following up, and motivating our interns. And we do this because it is crucial for the interns, and it's also very important for Capasa. We get a lot of work done, and the interns get real work experience. And I can assure you that our interns are not hired to make pretty PowerPoint presentations. They are doing real work, facing challenges and having to deal with real problems. I know for a fact that their time in Capasa is going to make them more robust when facing challenges later on in their career. So why is this important? And why have I been asked to speak here today? Well, small to medium-sized businesses, or SMEs, stand for more than 50% of value creation in a lot of countries. And we can offer great work experience. SMEs need interns and apprentices, and interns need SMEs. But that's not enough. We actually need to do more. In Norway, the government has put a price tag on every youth that falls out of working life. And this price tag is huge. And that doesn't even include the emotional challenges or the mental health issues. In order to help our youth, we need to work together. I think the French ambassador to the OECD pointed out that very well and sort of said that we need to do a collective effort. All businesses, large and small, we need to offer work and internships. But governments also need to do their part, offering programs, tax incentives, or maybe even more direct financial incentives for companies that are willing to hire youth and interns. Schools, universities, trade schools, all kinds of organizations working with youth need to pitch in. Let's make sure that we do what we can to help our youth. It is our common future. We need to invest in our youth to ensure that they get the opportunity that they need in order to succeed. Because if they succeed, we all succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marit. It was very inspiring, and it was great to hear about the fantastic initiatives in interns, and also a great support of internship programs. And thank you for sticking with it to the time. Now, let me turn to Gilles. Gilles, thank you very much for joining us today. Schneider Electric has been working with communities directly affected by COVID to improve opportunities for young people through your Tomorrow Rising Fund. Can you tell us a bit more about the impacts you are seeing and how you can help? Over to you in 4 minutes.
Yes, thank you for this 4 minutes. I'm very impressed by the action of many companies. I'm sure it's time for coalition between our action to be more efficient. But I have the pleasure to see Muriel Pénicaud here. And I would like to advertise about the book of Muriel, Pousser les murs in English, Push the Walls, about the strengths of the woman, the apprenticeship of many things. And if you are a speaker in French, or if you'd like to learn French, you can read this book. Perhaps 4 topics. One, it's about the facts, because I would like to come back to the fact before to express the vision and the action of Schneider Electric. The facts are very dramatic today, and we have each time, in my view, and that is the thing that we are doing in Schneider to come back to the fact. The fact we have today 1.8 billion people, more than 80% in a non-OECD country, who are used between 15 and 30, and many of these people are with unemployment. 75% are in not a big job, in informal work. Over 1 out of 6 of these young people stopped to work during the COVID crisis. More than 300 million youth adults are net without training, education, work, and so on. It's why it's a big, big reality, and the data are unplaceable. We make a lot of things, but we have to tackle the data, because with the data, we know that we have to be more organized and to act more. That is the vision about the fact that never in the past we face this number of youth at the worldwide level, and certainly never in the future, because this number of youth is the big growth of the worldwide population. We have to act together. Why? It's the Schneider Electric vision is 3 things. First, we are end-to-end. It's very simple. First, the economic future of the planet is end-to-end with the economic health of people. And the economic health of people is end-to-end with the health of the youth. And the health of the youth is linked to the fact that they are able to obtain skills, and to transform skills in job. We have to be partner to transfer skills and to support entrepreneurship, startups, to implement our company in developing countries and so on. It's key for the future of the planet. Second topic about vision. During the last 20 years, our companies were involved to resolve the vulnerability of the planet, which is the climate. We are speaking about agenda of solution. If the climate is the topic of the century during the next decade, we are sure that to reduce the fragility of the society, which is the integration of the youth, companies have to contribute to agenda of solution for the youth. At the same level that the question and the mobilization for climate. It's not possible to be very committed to reduce the climate change and not to be committed to reduce the difficulties of many youth to have skills, to have a job, or to contribute to the prosperity of their own community. It's why in Schneider Electric we are involved to understand that the agenda of solution, and we made a lot of things about climate, new solution, a lot of things to reduce the carbon emission. Sure, we have to transfer skills to everybody to be sure that the youth find solution for their own future. Third action, 2 things. One, during the first time of COVID, and now we build a Tomorrow Raising Fund. It's a fund from Schneider Electric with partner, with Schneider Electric people, to make our best to reopen very quickly all the schools of the worldwide level during this COVID crisis. Because very often, when we are speaking about emergency, we are speaking about health, water, food, and it's key. But if we don't push the teenager at the worldwide level to come back at school, especially in developing countries, never they will come back at school. It's why Schneider Electric, after each drama everywhere on the planet, support this initiative to reopen very quickly schools, to give a better level to teachers, to be sure that the teenager could come back at school very quickly, because that is not the case, never they will come back. We have in France another book. The name is It's Mozart That We Kill. It's from Cesbron, long time ago. If we don't share skills to the youth, the teenagers, the young adults, sure, that will be more complex tomorrow to be innovative and to tackle the topic of the century. It's why we are doing that for them and for us. And I think it's the third vision of our reality about the youth. It's a question of corporate social responsibility. I'm very impressed about the fact that our company answers to many, many questions about corporate social responsibility, about men or women in the company, about the level of compensation of the just 1 minute of the boss and the others. Never when we are speaking about corporate social responsibility at the worldwide level about the youth. For Schneider Electric, we have 2 KPIs, only 20 seconds. The first is to train 1 million unprivileged people before 2025 to support these people to have their own future and to contribute to the development of their community. And the second commitment for the next 5 years, it's to multiply by 2 the opportunity for the next generation by interns, apprenticeship, fresh graduate years, PhD, because sure, during the next 10 years, all company, Schneider Electric, the others, we have to run for that because it's a big emergency. And before IG, we are building a group together, a work team about this topic. All the companies who are here are very welcome in this group to be better together. And the initiatives that I understand, especially for IBM and from others, are key in this group.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
For your enthusiasm. We do have to move on. We have 2 more speakers and would like to give them the chance. So we now move on to Javier from Santander. You have a long history of supporting investing in young people working with universities. Education is really key. Can I ask you to maybe to limit your intervention to 3 minutes because we have another session afterwards? Javier, the floor is yours.
Sure. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'll try to be brief. Well, Santander has been supporting higher education for 25 years. We are the largest corporate sponsor to higher education in the world. We have 3 priorities. One is around scholarships, and all our audience can find our offering of scholarships in becasantander.com. If you look for Scholarship Santander, you can find it. Only last year, we granted 150,000 scholarships. Second priority for us is entrepreneurship, fostering entrepreneurship, both supporting young people, have relevant experience around entrepreneurship, even though they might not become entrepreneurs, but we think it's good for them to develop the soft skills that entrepreneurship brings. But also we support entrepreneurs that are offering solutions to real problems. Yeah? Only last year we supported more than 30,000 entrepreneurs. And you can find our offering in santanderx.com. Our third priority is fostering employability of youth. And we do that through Universia and Universia Jobs, and we partner with thousands and thousands of SMEs on our core markets in Europe, Latin America, and the US to help them get talent. Just as Marit was saying that she's doing, we partner with thousands of SMEs around our markets. And the only thing that I wanted to include on that is that we have a very novel model, if you will. All of the things that we're doing through a network of more than 1,000 university partners. So it's not Santander that's doing this. It's more than 1,000 universities on our markets with us, and that would be the main idea I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Javi. That's really excellent as well. And the link to education, between education and the companies, is extremely important. Thank you very much for this. So now let me turn to the final panelists. We look forward to hearing from AXA on your skills program. So I understand that you're looking to establish a new program to support youth. If you could tell us a little bit more about this. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Merci Annie et merci pour cette opportunité de présenter ce
Thank you very much, Honey, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present our program, which is very new and which aims to support young people. We have Ricard, AXA, and three other companies, 5 companies that have joined forces to have an impact. We have an enormous capacity to recruit young people. Despite our efforts, we've realized that there are a large number of very talented young people, men and women, who were outside the circuits of education, employment, and training as a result of the crisis. And so people who were not showing up on the radars of our recruiters in our companies. We decided, therefore, to create a program to support these young people in the category NEET, not in education, employment, or training. We have particularly targeted these young people who have no further studies, who perhaps have completed high school but have no university degrees, and who have not been able to pursue their education or find jobs as a result of the COVID pandemic. What we are offering through our program is a holistic approach, providing young people to spend 6-month apprenticeships in 2 different placements. We first of all target the disadvantaged areas of cities. Our first training ground, or their first area for action, is Île-de-France, the Paris region, helping young people and transmitting the message to them that it is not because you don't have a university diploma or degree that you can't make a useful contribution. Then we're offering an integration program that is leading young people into training programs to help them to develop the necessary skills, working over a 3-year period with trainers and business leaders. We have human resources experts helping them to follow the program, and we're working to put in place a diploma certifying that their participation in this 3-month of training, 3-year program. The young people who do it will go through several placements. For example, they might work for 6 months in Publicis, 6 months in AXA, gaining experience in the context of apprenticeships and trainings. The impact of our program, just to try and be very brief, is that we are fostering corporate social responsibility among the partner companies. We are reaching out to young people who need that support, and we are making a contribution to equal opportunity, which is very important in our companies as well. For our human resources people, it is also a very important opportunity to raise awareness of the need to respect diversity and equality, equal opportunity. At what point have we reached now, and what is the future? We have 25 young people who have just started in a work study project, gaining experience in our companies. This is a small-scale project at the moment, which is a pilot program to demonstrate the positive impact on young people. And we're also calling on candidate companies through this webinar, other companies that would like to join this initiative. The more companies participate, the more job opportunities we will be able to offer to our young people who are participating. This is something which is very beneficial to everybody. And this is something that's very dear to me and that I'm promoting quite shamelessly, because this is our future. Offering a full program to young people, mentorships, coaching, training, apprenticeships and internships that provide professional experience. So it's a very holistic approach. Thank you very much, Sophie. Very interesting and encouraging.
We should close for discussion now, but I have for everybody, we also have questions, sent them in writing, and the speakers and OECD and us business organizations can get back to you. Just in closing, I would really like to thank the panelists. It was great to see the variety of initiatives, and it was great to feel the enthusiasm. And there was really, I mean, a positive spirit in this panel. That's really fantastic. I think it has been inspiring and giving hope, and that's what we need now. I would just very briefly underline 3 points from my side. What we need going forward. We need commitment. We need action now to create the opportunities for young people. We need vision. We need to continue to lead by example and consider the youth issue as a long-term issue. We need to build not just, we shouldn't forget this program after COVID. We are getting out of this crisis. We should not lose momentum. And finally, we need cooperation. We can only successfully address the challenges facing the young generation today if we all work together. And I think this meeting has been an excellent, really excellent platform for this. So thank you very much also to the OECD for organizing this. And again, it's a pleasure for Business at OECD to be part of this. Thank you very much again to all the panelists.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hani. This was a quite challenging task to moderate this session. We have a lot of speakers, very good speakers, but you did it. Thank you so much. We're going to move now to our final round of discussion, and I'm going to hand over the floor to its moderator, John Denton, Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, the ICC. John, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lamia, and it's great to be with you. It's a wonderful initiative, and we throw our full weight, our global weight behind the initiative Stand By Youth, though we were actually pushing a little bit for hire for youth, but we're very glad with the outcome of what we got, because that's what we want to do. It's also a pleasure for me as the first Australian in 100 years to lead the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris, be part of a discussion led by the OECD, which is now led by another Australian, my mate, Matthias, who is the first Australian in 50 years to lead the OECD. So you've got the Australians all over you at the moment. So that's a good thing, I hope. I hope it'll be a better thing. Just so you know, those of you unfamiliar with the ICC, so we are a global organization, 100 years old. We represent more than 45 million businesses. In fact, during last year, we've grown significantly, even beyond the 45 million. We now actually have an even expanded presence where we've had businesses and communities in Francophone Africa seek to join us. We've also now got the Caribbean that sought to join us. Plus, we're in the midst of actually expanding at the request of Central Asian business. So we're in Kazakhstan, etc. now. So why is it that we're growing in the midst of this challenge? It's because what we do is we represent the real economy. And what we do is work to grow the economy, work to revitalize global trade and advance sustainability. But in all of that, what we also want to do is ensure that we have a sustainable ICC for the future. And that requires us to have deep roots generationally. And part of that deep-rootedness we want is to actually engage with the next generation. And we want to help the next generation. The next generation will only be interested in you if you talk about issues that are relevant to them, but actually do things that are relevant to them. We're in the process of completing a model which is rolling out what's called the Icc Centers of Entrepreneurship. We now have 2 functioning, one in Istanbul, one in Beirut. In fact, I'm in Beirut and Istanbul next week, working on those centers. But we'll grow that by the end of the calendar year to almost 14, 4 in Latin America, 4 in Africa. And in fact, there'll be 4 emerging in Europe. In fact, just listening to Javier before from Santander, I'm working at the moment in Andalusia. I was just down there in Seville last week because we've been asked to help encourage a greater engagement by youth. What we do, and a good example is in Argentina at the moment, where when we actually go about the process of creating a Center of Entrepreneurship, we crowd in views. So for example, in Argentina, we'll be based in Buenos Aires, but we're reaching out. So at the moment, I'm in a process of discussion and a series of webinars that will emerge in Rosario, which is 1,400 kilometers away from Buenos Aires, and that will be led by young people. In fact, I might just quote to you from one of the comments from one of the young leaders who'll be part of this. The connection system needs to change. This is from young Santiago. LATAM needs to start taking advantage of all the talent they have in their own countries and promote initiatives that contribute with growth and no longer obstacles on the track. I want to take advantage of the influence and power of the ICC and create a welcoming environment for young entrepreneurs, startups, and organization in general. That's what we're doing. We're reaching out to those voices, and they're informing the organization and the organization of our Centers of Entrepreneurship. So I thank you for this opportunity to participate. What's actually amazing about the segment that I'll be moderating is actually it's all about new models for the future. And we've got a very interesting, but also very powerful group of leaders. When you read their CVs, you sort of wonder, did they ever have a chance to have some sleep? But amazing what people have been able to do. I won't go through each of the CVs, but just introduce Joao Cardosa, Nile, who'll be working with us, Bettina, Marcia, and William Drayton, who will be speaking. So I'd like to kick off by asking Joao a question. Now, you're a member of the OECD's YouthWise initiative. So tell us, what kinds of challenges and opportunities do you see facing youth in relationship with dealing with business? Joao, over to you.
Hello, Mr. John Denton. I hope you can hear me. If not, just say something. And good day to you, to my fellow speakers and the audience at home. Yeah, like Mr. John said, I'm a member of Youthwise. That's a youth advisory board in the OECD organization. And we try to bring new ideas and new perspectives to the organization and try to help them to better connect and better understand the youth. But now, focusing on the task at hand, how can business better comprehend the challenge that we young people face on our daily lives? There's a saying that young people are the future, but how can we focus on that role when we have so much challenges and so much that we need to resolve in our daily lives? For example, the youth labor market is one that is mostly sensitive to economic cycles. Since we are the most recent hires in most companies, we don't have so much experience. We don't know how to perform most of the routines that are needed in our daily tasks. And so when the economy is down, we are the first being laid off. Additionally, this health crisis doubled down on young people by affecting the sectors that young people are usually most employed. Hospitality, retail are some of them where young people have been affected in a huge way. And initially, since 2019, due to the health crisis, there's been a huge decrease in opportunities, either entry or non-entry levels, directly to young people. So as you can see, there's a snowball of effects that are affecting young people and can scar them, either professionally or in the personal level. But on professional levels, the scars that we can expect to see on young people in future years are, for example, we will receive lower wages when compared to other older generations that perform the same tasks that we usually perform. We will start to see a huge saturated young people's market because young people that are now employed will start to compete with young people that are finishing nowadays and in the future their formal education. And finally, there's a social stigma that young people face when they go to recruitments, because when you look at the CV and you see a long hiatus or job hopping between different companies in less than a year, for example, young people suffer the stigma that they think they are not so reliable employees instead of those that stayed 1, 2, 3 years in companies. So how can companies and in comparison young people overcome that? One example would be through networking and online training. Those are the main tasks and the main tools that we have at our disposal nowadays that allow us to try to bridge that gap and so reach the business and try to present our case. But we cannot forget about the digital divide that existed prior to the pandemic and is now being exacerbated by this lack of opportunities and capabilities that those less fortunate have. Additionally, there's also the capability of young people to participate in advisory boards or sounding boards, where we as young people can help top and middle management try to manage their decisions on their daily lives to the company, and so try to implement some of our own ideas and our own failures that we see on their daily operations. And finally, other priority, like previously said in other panels, would be through internships, lessons, and the hands-on approach where young people have the opportunity to interact with employers and other types of jobs and to see if they really like that path, or if they, for example, would like to prefer some other path that they are not completely aware. Thank you so much for your attention, and that's back the floor to you, John.
Thanks so much, Joe. It's great to hear you speak and fascinating. Neela, I'm actually super excited to hear from you, actually. We've just been asked by the World Food Programme to work with them in Africa and a number of other really quite challenging LDCs, and in particular transitional economies, trying to establish private sector environments and actually therefore support the growth of SMEs. And I look at what you've done in the agri-food sector, and the question I've got to ask is, how do you engage and how do you build those capabilities? Because frankly, everything you say, I'm going to write down and steal. You got 4 minutes though.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep to those 4 minutes. So thank you very much for your question, John, and thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak at this event. So to make agriculture attractive and sustainable is an imperative to be able to feed the world. And there's more potential now than ever to get to grips with these challenges. So we witness young people around the world speak up, get connected, and act to transform the system as they need it to be for their own and for their children's future. Our vision in all of this is for a sustainable and prospering agriculture that will be home to these young people and that will allow them to make real life impact. So how do we engage them? We listen to them first, the next generation of agricultural leaders, to build programs that respond to their specific needs. And what they demand for, very rightly, is for training, opportunities, networks, mentoring, and also advocacy skills. And we've heard that before from the other inputs that we already got. So one good example of how we respond to that is our Youth Act Summit, which is a global convention we have been realizing since 2013 on a biennial basis with diverse partners. And what we do is we ask youth between the ages of 18 and 25 around the globe to enter a public competition for the best ideas on how to feed a hungry planet. And then the 100 strongest candidates will become our delegates for the event. And in the past, we hosted this in person. We can't do this now with the pandemic, but actually the first ever virtual edition of Youth Act Summit provides us also with new options to engage that we are very happy to explore to bring new benefits to our delegates. So apart from having a digital summit on 2 days in November, our 2021 cohort will go through a 10-week idea incubation program, the YAS University, which we facilitate in cooperation with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the digital platform provider Babelli. So here the young people will run through a development journey to further refine their own projects, prepare a final pitch deck, enjoy mentoring, and get to peer-to-peer reviewed, while at the same time running through a comprehensive upskilling program, including modules on entrepreneurial issues, critical thinking, presenting, financing, and much more. And all the while, our delegates will also be connecting through their own community platform, where they're free to exchange ideas, debate, and deepen their knowledge. On the outcomes side, we are very happy to see a thriving community of these alumni, bringing their projects forward, often together. Mentor-delegate relationships often last far beyond the actual YAS experience. Some of our YAS alumni have joined our company. Others have started their own youth movements, such as Act for Food, Act for Change. And some have developed their own products and services, while many have returned to their communities where they make this real-life impact. So to finalize, here's just 2 examples. A 2019 alum from Nigeria is an agri-tech entrepreneur leading a fast-rising agriculture capacity building hub, through which he has already provided over 5,000 young people with skills and resources that fit the local market needs. And at the same time, driving agri-tech and climate-smart agriculture. He also reaches 10,000 plus young people and agricultural stakeholders through newsletters, social media, webinars in Africa and around the globe. Another alum focuses on nutrition-sensitive agriculture. So he works in a small village in Madagascar where 50% of the population is malnourished. He's raising funds to build his own clinic and grow nutrient-dense foods that respect the Malagasy culture. So thanks to those guys out there, all these youth doing so much great stuff. And thank you very much for inviting me to this panel.
That's fantastic, and it would be really great to hook up, because I'm a great believer in connecting things up, and often there are too many fractionalized interventions. What I want to do is create open platforms so that we can really get to scale and then transform, which would be great. Now, moving to Bettina. I always like the idea of being CEO for a month. So at Echo, someone might actually give me that chance one day, just joking. But Alan De Hayes, your CEO, is actually a mate of mine, a friend of mine for a while. And we've been working at Icc with General Assembly and also with Alan's blessing, because we're developing our own global learning platform. So I'm incredibly impressed by the work of Echo. But of course, one of the challenges that Echo takes up all the time is how do you effectively prepare people to actually get them into the world of work? So I'd be really interested in your comments. And again, 4 minutes only, but I'll have to bring the guillotine down.
And absolutely, John, and what a pleasure to be with all of you. Incredibly inspiring this hour and 16 minutes so far. And really, it's true. It's about connecting, about scaling, about bringing it all together. So the Adecco Group, world-leading HR solutions advisory talent company, we're actually connected to many of you on this panel. We're proud to be, you know, a member of the Global Apprenticeship Network, of the Global Alliance for Youth with Nestle, of many other partnerships and initiatives around here. You mentioned CEO for 1 month. So indeed, this is one very specific, and since this is about innovation, I think very interesting program. We've been running this for 10 years and we intend to do it for many more years. We ran it virtually this year and last year already. And that was really about focusing on the leadership needs that we have out there, and actually on giving the youngsters the opportunity to, in the real world with real CEOs, you know, gain that experience. And I like, or I don't like, but Zhao, of course, you talked about the social stigma. So it's exactly about addressing that. And that's back to your question, John. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only by gaining experience in the companies, by being there, by actually, you know, sitting next to the people, by having the most practical insights that you're actually going to gain those skills. And so here for 1 month allows the youngsters that make it through a very, very actually fun process as well, very rigorous. There's a lot of stages to pass. So allow one youngster per country. We operate in 60 countries, but the program this year has run in 40 countries, to shadow the CEO for an entire month. One of the pieces actually is the salary. So the youngster will earn the CEO's monthly salary for that time as well. And I think that might be one of the reasons why this year we had 200,000 applications again for the program. Now, again, at the end, one makes it. That's, you know, a lot coming, or maybe 40 if we go from the 200,000. But since we've developed a whole process along the way, so many more are benefiting. One additional element of the 40 who then, you know, are in country, they all automatically enter another competition in order to be the global CEO for 1 month. So to accompany Alain Dehaze, you mentioned him, John, as global CEO for a month as well. So I think one of those, you know, nice programs, which definitely just looking at the cohort that we've been able to develop with this specific piece, we're incredibly proud. I mean, they're all already, you know, wonderful members of whatever sector they've entered, and actually many have left the private sector to then work in other areas. But we've been able to give them the experiences to develop as leaders and make it in the world of work.
Thank you so much, Bettina. This team is right on the 4 minutes, so let's keep it up. I have to crack the whip, but let's just keep it up. Now, Marcia, leading a small business. Now, you know, as the ICC, we're the institutional voice of the real economy. We talk about it, we engage with SMEs and micro SMEs on a daily basis. We create funding models. We actually try to reduce regulatory frameworks. And what we try to do is encourage space for them to take on new so they can continue to grow. So Marcia, tell us the story. Tell us how you should do it from the trenches. Come on.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation, first of all. Yeah, very, very big honor for us as a very small company. We have about 85 employees, and we are an electrical company from Germany. So I try to explain how we solve the problems and yeah, for youth and with young people to support them. And yes, we are a company for electrical engineering and lighting architecture. So we combine a professional handcraft and the academic area. And this special feature is in our company, the possibility to support young people very flexible in really different areas. And yeah, they can find themselves. They have role models in different areas, as like the electrical installer to engineer or architect or CFO or a senior manager. And so they can try themselves out and try how is the right position for them. And as an academic business philosopher, I have established a humanistic field of work in which all young people within our flat hierarchy can try out all areas. This is how we avoid the fate of the classic losers in education, how I can try to say it. We value individual support. All young people, whether they are trainees or students or are coached on Fridays by our project managers and training supervisors. To be able to guarantee this, we never employ more than 10% trainees. And this is a big problem in COVID-19, was that homeschooling, for example, was not taken very seriously from them, so that the young people would not have passed their exams without our support. And yes, this was a very, very big challenge for us because we had a lot of problems in COVID, different kind of problems. And so it was very, very important for us to support the youth, and it worked. It worked, but we saw in different SMEs and different microcraft businesses with 8 or 10 employees, some of which are our competitors, had no opportunity to invest this time in young people, and especially in the time of COVID-19. This leads to a further shortage of skilled workers or a vicious circle. So this is our responsibility to break this. From my perspective, young people have to come in contact with the business much more early, so that they can see that they have no future fears, so that we can reduce future fears and that they can earn much more earlier. So in Germany, there's one really good approach trying to solve that problem. The Summer of Vocational Education brings together training companies and young people within action days, summer camps, or information events. I think this is a good way to try this connection between them and to solve such problems. Yes, but I think COVID-19 has much more raised up the problematic of that we have no very good employees, so the education is much more important than before. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Marcia. And as I say, you're doing it from the trenches and you're building out. And by the way, in some countries, 70 to 80 employees is actually a big business. So you're never small. You've only ever got big opportunities before you. So congratulations on what you're doing. Now, Bill, a shocker, you know, it's actually quite well known to me because in my previous role, I was senior partner at Australia's leading law firm, Cause, and I dedicated one of my partners, Richard Leader, to serve on the board of Ashoka in Australia. So I'm actually very familiar with the work you're doing in creating social enterprise, but I actually would like you to share that, particularly your moves to actually really encourage more younger people to actually engage in developing and seeing the benefit of social enterprise. Over to you, Bill, but 4 minutes only. You're on mute. You're the only one who's been on mute. Go.
Sorry. So thank you. The citizen sector is the fastest growing jobs area. The business sector, the service part, the fastest growing is 2.1%. We're growing at 4.4%. We're already 30% more jobs than all government put together. So this is part of a world that's changing really fast. But I think we have to focus for business, government, and the citizen sector because we all have the same moment. Everything is changing. Climate, the virus, AI, and it's just going to increase. So here are two facts. Rate of change has been going up exponentially since 1700. Second, degree and extent of interconnection has been going up exponentially since 1700. And that has led to a death dive in demand for repetition. We don't get to choose those are just facts. So here are two questions. Is your daughter practicing change making? Is she going to have the skills that she needs to be able to contribute in an everything changing world? Second question, Is your organization and everyone a change maker place? Are your people change makers? And are you a fluid, open, integrated team of teams? Because that's what change makers need. And that's the only way your organization connects with everyone else. So the world now has, most of us are in this new world. And it's great. We're all struggling to get employees because the demand for people who are change makers is far greater than the supply. So the parts of the world where we have change makers, they're doing really well. The problem is that the other part is being crushed. So 2 statistics from the US. In 2000, the economic output per capita between the change-making half and the low or no change-making half was about the same. Now, the change-making part has 79% of output, the other 21%. And that translates, if you're in the no change part, in one generation, those people have lost 4 years of life expectancy. Smoking, drugs, food, despair, and anger. And that's what gets us the us versus them politics that has divided the world. And it's been a wave in the last 7 years because we are at the tipping point. And so it's not just your daughter. Every young person has to have change-making abilities. That's a new definition of success in growing up. Your dream, your team, your changed world. If you have that experience, you have your PhD. It's a wholly different game. So what can we do about it? Well, we are all desperate, regardless of sector, to get change makers. So we're out looking. Let's say it out loud. Let's talk to parents and schools and kids and say, this is it. If you're a change maker, if your daughter is a change maker, that is going to work. And our saying that does several things. That's the most credible force to get change, so that kids really are able to contribute. And we don't have this divide anymore. Second is really good marketing. When you empower someone, talk to psychologists, they call this transference effect. They like you, they're loyal to you. This is really, really smart. But it's leadership, and that's getting people to see and understand and help make sure that every young person is a change maker. We don't have this divide anymore. We can do that. This group, especially.
Thank you so much, Bill. Just want to check, we've actually managed to run this whole session exactly according to timing. So we're actually at 4 p.m. in Paris. We now have a little bit of time for questions. In fact, there's a question that's popped up. I'll come back to one second. I just want to ask Joao a question myself because it really intrigues me. One of the dangers in a lot of the interventions you see around youth or around opportunities for youth is they're often top down. Sometimes they're government programs. People say, oh, it's a good idea. I'm much more interested in engaging and building up. I'd be really interested to hear from you, Joao, about what do you think are the most effective ways of actually crowding in the views of the next generation in order to build up a program which could actually be useful.
So just to see if I understand correctly the question, because I have a couple of problems. How can young people gather our opinions?
That's right. How can we best get access to your opinions about the way forward? A bit like how do you become change makers, but actually, how do you actually become part of developing the solution rather than having it imposed on you? How do we best elicit your views?
I mean, one of the most obvious ways is the internet. Despite the digital divide, there's already many people in Africa, Asia that are starting to come up on the digital world, and they want their own opinions, and they have a very different perspective from someone of North America, Europe, etc. And the best way was to provide them with the infrastructure, computers, internet that's starting to come up with young people. But until then, the best way is simply go to ask them. Because, for example, I'm going to put the example of Youthwise. Youthwise was a little bit hidden in the internet. It's not what was not well advertised. There was not a lot of interaction between OECD through newsletters or something like that. So, like I think was Nell said, with newsletters, and have the opportunity to really contact face-to-face the young people in universities, schools, youth groups. Young people want to thrive and want to make their voice heard in the real world. So just to provide them with the tools, just go face-to-face with them and ask them what you think is wrong. It's going to be a huge game changer and provide the change makers that Bill was talking previously.
That's great. Neely, what sort of experience do you have? I mean, building the project that you've built actually requires, I suppose, a balance between top-down and actually bottom-up. How have you got the balance right, do you think? Or is it a work in progress?
So no, like I said, what is really important is that we ask our young stakeholders first. So I do, when I first step into my new role here, I spend weeks just talking to young people and stakeholder engaging with other young people. So network of networks, building up on that. And I first got a global view of what's going on. And there's really quite a few similarities all over the planet. So that's what I said. Like young people from all over the planet have told me agriculture is unattractive. It's not prosperous. What are we, it needs to change. It needs to become interesting to us. We need to be able to get access to technologies, to solutions. We need to be able to drive it all and drive it for sustainability. So how do we do this? And they were asking me for networks, for mentoring, for trainings, upskilling sessions, etc. So we take all this input and then we build our programs around that. But then we do have what Bill was asking for and which I really liked. I like the team of teams idea. So thank you for that one. That was great. But it's actually what we have on our internal side. So we are building on teams of teams because I'm not alone. I'm not the only one doing this. Obviously, I need my colleagues. I need other teams. There's more departments within Bayer who also have their own youth programs or young next generational programs. Then I'm from a global position, but we have people in all the regions. They know their people again better. So it's this kind of approach. It's like a puzzle, putting pieces together.
No, I fully understand. But with that echo and the programs you have in place, so obviously CEO for a month, but there are lots of other interventions, internships. When people listen to the people who are subject to opportunities in CEO for a month or internships, have you actually made any changes to the programs as a consequence of actually having direct dialogue with the people who use them? How do you, is it a useful, have you got a good feedback loop, and how does that work?
No, absolutely. And I mean, I mentioned we've been running the program for 10 years, and luckily it doesn't look today, the way it looked 10 years ago. And the result is, or that's notably the result of that feedback loop. And obviously of also integrating elements like technology and social media. So clearly a big piece there. And actually right now, while we're talking, there's a big debate session going on. As I said, those 40 have to now run to become the one global CEO. And those debates are, by the way, public. So if you go and Google, us, you will be able to find them and even participate. That's something we didn't have a few years ago, but was a clear request as well, just to be able to also, share your perspectives in a very formal setting in a way, and then do that in front of a jury to a certain respect. So incredibly important, absolutely. And you know, we've got, as you said, other programs as well. More and more, we're taking youngsters into the decision-making process at the company as well. So we've got shadow boards in certain countries that actually, again, shadow the whole executive committee of the country, because we want to hear what their perspective is, and obviously it allows us to be closer to the market as well.
Amazing. By the way, I'm in Georgia next week in Tbilisi because we're building a center of entrepreneurship there. Georgia actually has as a policy, they actually appoint young ambassadors to support existing ambassadors in capital. So there's a young ambassador to France and an ambassador to France. So it's fascinating. Now, I've actually just got instructions via WhatsApp that I've got to wrap this early because we've got to give at least 20 minutes for Lamia to give the closing remarks, just joking. But because there's a video that people want to show before 4:15. So thank you for being so willing and engaging in the conversation today. Hopefully what the participants have been able to understand who've been joined us today is how important the issue is, but importantly, how important it is to actually involve and engage with the people with whom you're actually seeking to help to actually get their views. And that seems to be one of the common qualities that's come throughout this whole panel. And of course, it's an important mission, and it's one that I think we're all proud to be part of. So thank you very much. Lamia, over to you.
Thank you so much, John. Amazing way to manage a panel. Again, thank a lot to all of the partners, the moderators, and of course the speakers. Today we have heard about some of the extreme challenges that young people are facing as they start out in life and the world of work. The pandemic has closed doors and put their future on hold. From our first panel, we heard from Joe that the hope of young is fading, both for job opportunities and for young entrepreneurs. And we have seen how it has accelerated pressures from structural changes like the shift to digital skill mismatches and the premium to skills. There is a huge need for the young to adapt, but also huge opportunities to be seized if they do. In the second panel, we heard of the huge impact companies are already having in supporting young people to adapt and overcome these challenges through internship, education, and training programs and employment. We heard about the indirect impact they can have by working together and through their supply chains. And we heard about the importance of investing time in youth, particularly the disadvantaged, through mentoring and personal engagement. These are all inspiring examples, and we hope that they will encourage others to act to create opportunities, including small businesses who can build on their own local engagement and influence. And looking forward, as we heard during the third panel, there are many more ways business can get involved. We heard of the importance of companies providing support to the development of practical experiences and softer skills. And we heard of innovative ways of engaging them through competition, for instance, as buyers fed the word competition and Bettina CEOs for a day. So overall, I would say that our message today is very simple. Businesses of all sizes need to and can stand by youth to open up opportunities as an investment in their own future, as well as that of the young. And now I would like to play a short video as we officially launch our call to action. This call to action will be available on our website, and I'm going to ask the colleagues to put the link again of the website of the initiative. And now let's have a look at the video, please. We don't have any sound, huh? We have a problem with the sound. There is no sound. We have a technical program. Hello, I don't know if you can hear me. On a perdu tout.
On vous entend, Lamia.
Ah, parfait.
On n'entend pas la vidéo, mais on vous entend.
Bon, ben maintenant c'est parfait. On m'entend. Ça c'est déjà, c'est déjà une chose.
At least you can hear me. Good. All right. What we're going to
do is to maybe ask Muriel Pénicaud to deliver her remarks, and then we'll try again with the video.
Merci. D'abord, merci.
Bravo. First of all, thank you very much, and bravo to Lamia, who has organized and run this event masterfully. Very rich debate. There are 8 keywords that I would retain that have been debated significantly among others. There was Joao who talked about hope. For example, I think that the companies that we've heard from are making powerful commitments, but we mustn't underestimate the fact that we're asking young people to look to their future when they're experiencing enormous difficulties in the present. The difficulties in the present make it difficult to look forward to the future, and that's a very real effect. I think that the call to double our efforts, double the number of apprentices and interns and so on is something that we need to think about seriously, because we need to send a powerful message. Second keyword is skills. I think that's perhaps the thing that we've heard the most about. Carlos talked about entrepreneurship skills, and skills are linked to the future. Paul Hannigan and Joe talked about soft skills. Very difficult to learn when you are studying remotely or working remotely, and they're all the more important today. Sophie Furtak also talked about the very interesting experience in the most remote sectors of society, and Herman Inch talked about the importance of digital skills.
Margane ont beaucoup insisté eux, sur education et continuous learning. Est-ce que
they focus on education and ongoing training, which is key to allow for the digital transition. And then there's much talk about mentoring. And I think many among you have talked about mentoring, showing that mentoring will bring soft skills, allow young people to understand how companies work, how the real labor market works, and acquire these soft skills. Marit Vetters also talked about internships and their benefits, which are often undervalued, but really for young people, it's often their first experience of the labor market. And then when it comes to employment, there's a paradox because there's never been a higher unemployment rate in the OECD countries. And at the same time, we have companies who are looking for employees and can't find them. So there's a mismatch here that needs to be addressed. And that's why companies need to step up to offer jobs and internships. But if we do not participate in building the skills within the next generations, then we won't find the employees we need. Santander also, from Javier Rugla, also talked about training as a key element. And when it comes to coalition, I thought that Marit Vetters also talked about this collaboration between private and public, and I have been on both sides, so I understand very well this complex issue. They're all legal and fiscal issues to be considered in many countries such mine, but there are many things that companies can do, no matter their size, to give that first experience to young people. And I think Gilles Vermeaux de Roche from Schneider Electric really showed how all the issues are interlinked, the climate change and unemployment among young people. Those are topics that can be a weakness for businesses, but it could also be a strength. And when it comes to governance, I think it was also talked about by many of you. How do we involve young people in governance and in drafting solutions? And I thought the experience of that was the story of that competition was very interesting. And this shadowing of a CEO, be a CEO for 1 month, that was super interesting as well. It means it shows again that there's so many different ways that we can approach this first-hand experience for young people. And so now the question is, how do we share more good practices? How do we scale up good practices? And that's what we do at the OECD with the BIAC as well. We try to share good experiences and good practices. And thank you, all of you, because I think if we all contribute, then we can move the lines and improve policies for better lives, like the motto of the OECD tells us, and help young people and detect change makers among them, equip them and prepare them for the future. We know the future is quite uncertain right now, but we will need change makers for sure. Thank you very much for this debate.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Again, we apologize for this technical issues. I think we may be in a position to show the video quite soon. Libby, can you tell us if it is okay? Okay. We're gonna have Andy trying to display the video. Okay, I think we still have the same issue, Andy. So we're gonna stop it, and we're gonna display it on our website. It's a pity. I know that many people have been working on it, and these are things that may happen.
Join the Standby Youth Camp.
Here we are. For the young generation, COVID-19 has become a crisis of opportunity. For more than a year, they have seen job prospects dry up and the learning interrupted.
The situation is tragic. In OECD countries, the rise in youth unemployment during COVID has been twice as strong as for other generations.
We at ICC decided to take action and join the Stand By Youth campaign because it is our mission to make business work for everyone, every day, everywhere.
This pandemic has been affecting young people in terms of employment due to the lack of opportunities, the lack of networking, the lack of in-person training.
SME United welcomes the youth initiative. Efforts must be reinforced to prevent the increase of youth unemployment.
We need to build back trust that companies are more than just commercial actors and that they can, when called on, create profound and positive social change.
This stage is really important for us to keep on going, to keep working together and working together to face this post-COVID situation.
I believe that a society, an economy, a country that is not able to give a hope for a rewarding job and a decent life to its youth is doomed. This is why my organization is committed to mobilize its associate members to give a chance to the youth.
My challenge to all companies is to go all in the next recruitment round for graduates and young people. Double the amount of apprentices, double the amount of graduates on your graduate recruitment scheme, double the difference.
We encourage companies, whenever it's possible, to keep up their internship and their apprenticeship programs, engage with young entrepreneurs, consider mentoring opportunities, and work with local partners to improve the alignment of skills with the practical needs of the labor market.
Youth is at a critical point. We need young people to really step up, to take initiative, to be change makers. What companies can do is very simple. They should think about youth as an investment, as a way to rethink the way they organize, the way they innovate, the way they think about their future businesses.
We encourage companies to take actions that promote intergenerational collaborations, initiatives that foster the exchange of ideas and people, knowledge and skills transfers in inclusive, multicultural, and diverse working environments.
We need more multi-stakeholder, international, multidisciplinary, and intergenerational cooperation than ever. Public and private organizations must do everything they can to support the youth by providing opportunities, incentives, training, connections, partnerships, resources, and limited barriers of entry, both for entrepreneurship and career building.
Business at OECD stands by youth, because we simply cannot afford to leave them behind.
The Youth Forum stands by youth because we are the youth of Europe.
We stand by youth because we believe that everyone should be given the opportunity to be part of the solution and to be a contributor to a brighter future.
The OECD stands by youth because they are the future.
We owe it to the future generation to provide them with purpose, opportunity, and better livelihoods.
Please, businesses, large, medium, and small, join our movement. Respond to this call by sharing what you can do for youth on social media with our hashtag #StandByYouth and get in touch with us with your examples. Let's work together to create a brighter future for the young.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe Andrew, you need to stop sharing the screen. Thank you all for your passions. This is just a video that is the beginning of the beginning, because what we would like is to invite you all participants today, to disseminate the information, to join us, to respond to this call of action. If you are a business, please respond to the call of action. Share with us what your business can do to stand by youth. If you are not a business, please disseminate the information. We want all the companies to join. use our hashtag, tag us, get in touch also with us directly via our online form to share your examples and inspire the others. Because today it should really be the beginning. There are many amazing initiatives that we heard today, even coalition. It should be a platform of platform. Again, at the OECD, we are trying to mobilize the company, but at the end, we want to connect what we are doing with the public sector, with government, with mayors, because it's important that they are also aware and they are interacting also with the company. By working together, we really want to create a new global coalition of business, large, small, mediums, that will really engage to support the youth. We want to keep this conversation ongoing with businesses, and we will organize a series of events and discussion, including as part of the upcoming OECD Youth Week that will be organized after the summer. So I would like to thank you all. I would like to thank all the partner institutions. I would like to thank the great moderators, Camille, Hani, and John. I would like to thank my team, Andrew, especially Andrew Patterson and Delphine Clarvel, but also Libby, Nicola, but also all the members of the CFE Young Team. We have a CFE Young Team. And of course, my last word goes to our champion of youth, Ambassador Muriel Pénicaud, for supporting us and for making this initiative visible within her own constituency. Thank you so much and keep in touch. Thank you.